Welcome back to CRG, where this week we're putting together a very special Socket 7 system. So, what's so special about this? Well, this is just your average run-of-the-mill Socket 7 motherboard. It does have onboard sound and onboard VGA. We'll not be using that though. Well, we might use the onboard sound. We're not using the onboard VGA. We're going to need a processor, and for that I've selected the Pentium 200. Back in '96 I had my Packard Bell Pentium 100. This 200 MHz chip, this was the one that I wanted. This is not the MMX variant, that didn't come out until '97. The system we're building is going to be very focused around the tail end of '96. Back then in my Packard Bell I had just 16 megabytes of RAM. Let's double that, shall we, to 32. So what about graphics? As I said, we're not using the onboard VGA of this motherboard, but rather what we're going with is the same graphics card that I had back in '96. This is the Matrox Mystique. Most people would know this card these days as, say, a 2D card that you would put alongside the likes of a Voodoo 1. And while I probably will install this Voodoo card in here, my main reason for putting this machine together is that this Mystique is also a 3D card. It uses its own Matrox API. There are only a handful of games that will run on it, one of which is Destruction Derby 2. Back in '96 I couldn't run that game because my processor was not fast enough. This little system is getting put together so that I can finally enjoy that Matrox Mystique version of Destruction Derby 2. This has been an awful long time coming for me. I am super excited to get this together. So let's get stuck in. So if we're going to build a new system, we're going to need a case. And I've decided to go with this. I picked this case up a couple of years ago now in a local charity shop. It's not exactly top of the range. This is sort of a budget case from CIT, but it will do the job for us rightly today. It even has mounting points for an old motherboard such as this. Now the board isn't exactly going to fill the case, but it does fit in nicely, as you can see. As for the I/O panel at the back, I've bought a couple of blanks that I'll just drill out to suit our AT keyboard connector. And in case you're wondering, yes, the PCI and ISA slots line up perfectly with the back of the case. So there's our motherboard installed. It's only held in place with 4 screws in this case, but it's well in there, it'll be fine. So as I was saying, we do have onboard sound, and to get that sound out of there, you get one of these. We then get these connectors here for serial and parallel. They connect off on the motherboard here, and I'm just going to put them in these 2 slots. For the processor then, we have our bus speed set to 66 MHz, the multiplier is set to 3, and the core voltage is set to 3.3. On these Socket 7 boards, the chip only can go in one way. we'll use a little bit of MX4. And then our cooler goes on like that. $32 megabytes of RAM. And last but absolutely not least, the main event, the Matrox Mystique. So I have one black DVD drive to install, one black floppy drive to install. For the hard drive, I thought we'd try this 9GB Maxter drive. And then, because there is a window on the side of this case, I dug out some old rounded IDE cables and floppy cables. They need a bit of a clean. I'll do that. And then it's time to try a bit of cable management. Not exactly easy on this type of board, but I'll do my best. So I think the cable management worked out not too bad. The round IDE and floppy cables certainly are nice. We have a different power supply now, matches the case, CIT. How do you pronounce that? Would that be a hard C, as in kit? Or maybe a soft C, like a sh sound? Right, anyway. I had to change that power supply because the cable to the motherboard on the other old supply wasn't long enough to go around the back and plug in like that. Looks far better like this though. That power supply should be fine. It's a 500 watt supply. It's got SATA connectors and PCIe connector on it, but we'll not need any of that. So it won't be heavily loaded. It'll be okay in this wee case. Let's finish it off by putting the side door on. I'll maybe get a nice fan to sit in here. With plenty of yellow going on in the case. How about something yellow here? That might look quite nice. But for now, let's get this powered on and let's see if it's going to work. Okay, here we go, power on. And we're getting a picture, that's good. There we are, Pentium, 200 megahertz. And our 32 megabytes of RAM. So she's not seeing the hard drive. That's weird. Time to do some investigating. So it seems it was just my cable wasn't in right. Pushed it in fully home and now it's detecting the hard drive properly. Okay, I'm going to install Windows 95 on this. We're going to go with the OSR 2.5 release so that we get the FAT32 file system and we can make full use of that 8GB hard drive. So I've changed things around in here ever so slightly. I've moved the graphics adapter up to the first PCI slot. Taken out the parallel port because, well, I'm never going to use that. I've kept the two serial ports though because we are using a serial mouse. There is PS2 available on the board via these jumpers up here, but I just don't have the appropriate breakout cable for that. The shield is in place here at the back now, albeit I did make a bit of a mess of cutting it out for this, so I will have to look for a better solution. I'm still waiting on a yellow fan to arrive. I did order one, but since we have that yellow theme, I thought it'd be pretty cool to do this too. Some yellow lights, why not? So the other big difference on the desk then is the CRT. I had to take the Dell LCD monitor away because, well, our Matrox Mystique likes to run its games at 640 by 400. my big monitor doesn't support that. That's why we've moved to the old Dell CRT. So I can only apologise for the lack of sync between the camera and the monitor and the glare from my lights. In fact, I wonder if I turn off those main lights, that's a bit better. So we are all up and running, and we have Destruction Derby 2, MechWarrior 2 and Scorched Planet installed and ready to go. Those are the 3 full games that came packaged with this card originally. I still have some of my original discs. That's the original installation disc. And there's my original Destruction Derby 2 disc. Unfortunately, I've lost the original discs for Scorched Planet and MechWarrior 2, but archive.org certainly comes in handy. The setup is not without problems though, and I'm currently downloading the motherboard chipset drivers on the hope of fixing it. You see, one option available to the Mystique is bus mastering, and with that enabled you do get a bit of a performance boost, but I'm also getting this blue screen of death, and it is consistent. It is exactly the same fatal exception at memory address in that every single time. So I'm hoping that these motherboard drivers that are nearly downloaded, about halfway there, I'm hoping that will fix this problem and allow us to get full performance out of the Mystique. Failing that, I'll just have to disable bus mastering or possibly move to the likes of Windows 98. So I've installed the latest motherboard drivers, and I've also updated the BIOS to the latest version. I'm not convinced it's going to make any difference, but let's find out. Not a button of difference. Damn it! I really don't want to have to go to the hassle of installing Windows 98. As you can see, it doesn't crash the system, which is kind of rare for any Windows 9X. It can actually recover from that error. Right, I'm going to have to just disable bus mastering. So this is Scorched Planet from Criterion Studios. That's the same crowd that did the Burnout series. You might be familiar with those.
Data 5.
Obligatory FMV intro. Every 90s game had to have it. So just because the camera is doing such a poor job of recording this screen, I'm just going to show you a bit of this game very quickly. If I switch to an external camera mode, you can see that you basically drive around in this sort of tank thing, or it transforms into a ship.
Save boy.
And basically what you have to do is rescue these civilians.
Civilian obtained. Civilian obtained. Civilian obtained.
And then transform to your ship and fly them through this thing.
5 humans saved.
Oh dear. That sounds absolutely awful, doesn't it? I guess our onboard sound chip is not that good after all. So of course the game isn't just
Billion
as
of fame.
simple as that. This is just the first level after all, so it is easy.
Shockwave detected.
You do eventually get attacked by big pterodactyl looking things, if I could find any.
Five human slaves.
But beyond all that, and more to the purpose of this video and the Matrox Mystique, hopefully you can see that this game looks pretty good for a 96 title, and it is running absolutely flawlessly. Yeah, I don't think you can actually destroy that mothership, but there's those pterodactyl looking things there. Where'd he go? Let's try a bit of mechwarrior. Both this and Scorched Planet are probably the only two games that I could play back in the day on my Pentium 100. Probably more so Scorched Planet than this one. This did run, but it was a bit laggy. As you can hopefully see here, it's running really well on the Pentium 200 system.
External camera engaged.
I really do need to get a better means of capturing VGA, don't I?
Enemy mech destroyed. Heat level critical.
Okay, it's that time. The one I have been waiting for. Destruction Derby 2. You can't see the disc. I've turned the lights off in the cave just so you can see the screen better. Just seeing this playback smooth. It makes me so happy. You have no idea. Even just this video playback on my old Pentium 100 stuttered all over the place. This is so awesome. Right, so what have we got? Wrecking Race, Stock Car, Destruction Derby. Has to be Destruction Derby. Let's go for practice mode. For the car, let's take the Pro car. Why not? Funny, that icon there is the same as your PS1 memory card. Obviously just using assets straight from the PlayStation game. Right, here we go. How cool does that look? Yes, there's a wee bit of tearing in the textures, but that's fully expected. Very common in a game of this time. You would get a wee bit of tearing like that. That seems a bit slow.
Go!
Right, what's it gonna play like? Let's go. You have to love it. And you know what? It's running not too bad. Back in the 90s on my Pentium 100, this just was not playable. It was an absolute slideshow.
lost your hunt.
So one thing you might be able to see here, which is a bit of a failing of the Mystique card, it can't do transparent textures. So any smoke that you see will either be solid or like a checkerboard pattern, like a hatching, almost in a similar way to how the Saturn draws transparency. And yes, I know the Saturn can do proper transparency when it wants to, just most games didn't bother.
Your radiator's blowing. You wrecked your car.
That was absolutely awesome. Exactly. Couldn't agree more, Mr. Announcer.
Plane, call over.
Well, that's more or less it. The little Matrox Mystique Pentium 200 build is finished. Well, finished for now anyway. I'm still waiting on that yellow fan to come, which I'm going to put in here. And considering how bad that sound was in Scorched Planet, I might look at getting a decent ISA sound card, and we'll do away with that onboard Sound Pro chip. The other thing which I probably will do, to be honest with you, is install this Voodoo 1 card in here alongside the Mystique. While the wee Mystique can do 3D games, the list of games it supports natively with its own API is pretty much limited. The full list: Actua Soccer, Battle Arena Toshinden, Destruction Derby 2, Croc, MechWarrior 2, Monster Trucks, but that's only a demo, Scorched Planet, Screamer 2, Screamer Rally, Time Warriors, Tomb Raider, and UEFA Champions League. That's it. No other games are natively supported by the wee Mystique graphics card. It can do DirectX, but it is missing quite a few DirectX features, so most games will show graphical problems. That's why I think installing the Voodoo 1 would be a good choice. In fact, what might be a pretty nice idea, at some point in the future, I'll do a wee comparison video between Glide and the MSI API, just on those couple of games that support both, just to see how they run and which one looks better. I suspect they'll run better on the Voodoo card, but look better on the Matrox. Well, that's it for now. Thank you very much for watching. Here's one of those games, by the way, Time Warrior. If you enjoyed the video, I would appreciate a big thumbs up, as it does help the channel. If you'd be interested in seeing that wee comparison between the Voodoo and the Matrox APIs, let me know, sure, and it's something we could look at in the future. For now though, I'm going to go and have a quick game of this, just to see how it plays on our little card. Any game with a character called Dong, it has to be, doesn't it?
Round one. Ready, fight.
Playing fighting games with a keyboard is not exactly easy. Dong is not very good. Right, I will have to get a joypad. The wee Mystique actually has a 15-pin joypad port on the back of it. But that'll do for now. thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.